Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all my review of Smallville Season 1 right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's Smallville Season Review. But before I jump into my Season 1 review, I want to remind you all to pledge to my comic book miniseries Totems on Kickstarter.com. Link will be annotated right here. And second, I just learned that I have won Comic Uno's YouTube Geeky Award for Best Legend of Korra Vlogger. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you all who voted for me. Thanks to whoever nominated me in the first place. And I really do appreciate all the support and the recognition. So with that being said, now let's jump into the Season 1 review. Now, for any of you all who have seen my Smallville, the complete series DVD box set unboxing, this hefty sucker right here, I announced then that now that I have the entire series, what I want to do is I want to go back and I want to take a look at all 10 seasons and then do weekly reviews of each season, pretty much giving you all my thoughts on each season. And I'm still growing accustomed to the season format of reviewing. As you all know, I'm usually more accustomed to reviewing episode by episode, but now I'm trying to get into the swing of reviewing seasons as a whole. So in order to help do that properly, I will be loosely following a reviewing format that was recommended to me by fellow YouTuber Hugo Strange. Shout out to you, bro. Appreciate all your help. And pretty much what I want from you all in the comments is just your general feedback on how I do with this review. You know, constructive criticism is always welcome. I can't get worse. I can only get better. So, guys, if you will, leave me all your thoughts on this review in the comments below. So let's jump into the Season 1 review. But first off, what I'll do is I want to address the behind the scenes, and pretty much what I'll do in the behind the scenes is I'll talk about who's who behind the camera, who's who on camera, and seeing as how this is the first season, I'll talk about the intentions for every season, but seeing as how this is the first one, I'll talk about the intentions of the series as a whole, give you all a little bit of backstory about the series, and then I'll talk about the inception, how well the intentions were implemented and executed, and what was the reception from the audience and from other critics about that season. So let's talk about this. Now, for any of you all who have been living under a rock for the last 11 years, Smallville is an American television series created by Alfred Gough and Miles Millar. And it is pretty much chronicling the teen and young adult years of Clark Kent, who we all know, Superman. And the intention of the series was to introduce younger audience and somewhat directly or indirectly rather, open up the Superman mythos to a much broader audience by giving the audience a younger, much more vulnerable, much more naive, but also much more sympathetic and much more down-to-earth Clark Kent. One of the major criticisms about the character of Superman is that he's unrelatable because he's so godlike. Well, what the creators did was they brought Clark Kent down to our level. They portrayed Clark in a manner in which he was very relatable, especially to the teenage and young adult audience who made up the majority of viewership week by week. I myself, I was 12 years old when the series first premiered. I was in middle school, and so I've been following the series since it premiered, and I can attest to that being a success because this was the series that made me a Superman fan, because I was able to relate to Clark in such a manner. And so nifty little trivia fact about this series. Smallville was originally intended to be a young Batman series. When the creators had the idea to do a coming-of-age story for a DC hero, they wanted to do Batman. They wanted to do a young Bruce Wayne series. What happened, though, was that the creators and then Warner Brothers, they decided to option out for a young Batman film, and that's how we got Batman Begins in 2005. And so once they pretty much optioned out for that, they decided, well, okay, if they're going to do a Batman movie, then let's bring Superman back to the small screen. And so that's how Smallville came about. And another little tidbit about Smallville was its premiere. The thing was, Smallville was, or I think it was delayed because Smallville was originally supposed to, I think, be released in August of 2001, but due to all the, there were so many complications with production that they had pushed it back. But due to September 11th and all of the things that were going on in the country, the creators were like, no, now is the time to put this out. This is the time when the country needs a hero the most. So they need Supermans, and then Smallville premiered in October of 01, and yeah, so some little factual info about the conception of the series. Now let's talk about the cast. And I will actually try my best. Actually, I think I can name the main cast of season 1 without looking at anything. Let's see. Okay, so we have Tom Welling as Clark Kent. We have Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor. We have Kristen Kirk as Lana Lang. Sam Jones III as Pete Ross. Allison Mack as Chloe Sullivan. Eric Johnson as Whitney. What's Whitney's last name? Well, Foreman. Whitney Foreman. Annette O'Toole as Martha Kent. John Schneider as Jonathan Kent. And throughout the season, we got guest spots by John Glover as Lionel Luthor. And I think I covered the whole cast without looking at anything. I did! Ha 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 ha! I am awesome. I am awesome. Yeah, this is my show, boy, I tell you. Alright, anyway, so that's the main cast for season 1. And so now I'm going to get into the minors. What? Anyway, so next I'll talk about, let's see, new characters and their role in the season, guest stars, their role. I just mentioned John Glover as Lionel Luthor, who appears in a couple of episodes in the season. And then if they were, okay, the good points and bad points of the season as a whole. Okay, well, good points and bad points about the season as a whole. First, let's talk about the good points of the season. The good points of the season in regards to the cast, in regards to some of the new characters, and in regards to the guest spots. The good points of the season is that I feel like season 1 did a really good job at setting the groundwork for all of the character arcs that were to follow in both this season and in the rest of the series. Another good thing they did was what I'm talking about is they started in setting the foundation for a lot of character subplots, and this is what I mean. In it, the character arcs, character subplots, what will transpire as the series goes along is that every character will get something to do. Every character will get their own little subplot. And season 1 did a good job at laying the foundation for that. They started, they started the breadcrumbs for some of these things. Now, some of these subplots wrap up in the seasons. Some characters have season by season subplots. Some their character arc starts now and continues over multiple seasons. So I think what season 1 did was they did a good job as that. Another thing that they did was they did a fairly good job at bring variety in the characters that appear in season 1. Now let's talk about the bad stuff. Season 1 is highly episodic. And what I mean is this. Every episode seems to be a standalone story almost, with very minute details that overarch the episode into an overarching plot for the season. Matter of fact, most of that doesn't even happen until the second half of the season. But in the first half, it's so God in that first half. It's very episodic. And what they implemented in the first season was the freak of the week type story, where every episode it was a different teenager with a different superpower that for some reason was obsessed with Lana. That Lana had the whole damsel in distress bit that Clark had to come to her rescue, which always ended up in some type of convenient unconsciousness for anyone who witnesses Clark and his powers, and so they forget it or they think it was a hallucination so that Clark could cover it up at the end. That story, for the first few episodes I'll buy, but after like episode 3 or episode 4, that shit got tired. It got really old, really fast, and this shit lasts throughout the entire season. That, I think, is season 1's weakest point, is that contrived freak of the week episodic bullshit. Yeah. Do I like the episodes? Of course, I'm a fan of the series. But even as a fan of the series, I can acknowledge when it's bullshit. And that shit got on my damn nerves. Okay. So now that we're over that, let's talk about the main plot of the season. Well, the main plot of season 1 is pretty much Clark, Lana, Pete, and Chloe are all entering high school. This is their freshman year. And conveniently, this is also the time when Clark discovers the truth about how he came to Earth. He finds out that he is an alien. He is not from this planet, and that's the reason for some of his abilities, some of the few abilities he had growing up before this point. Pretty much before the series starts, Clark has, super strength, he has super speed, and he has that immune system where he's hardly ever sick and nothing seems to hurt him. All of his other superpowers, those start developing as the series progresses, and in season 1 is the point when that starts happening. Just off the top of my head, I believe season 1 is when he gets his X-ray vision. I want to go as far as to say this also the one when he gets the super hearing? I don't know. Super hearing might be, yeah. Nah, what it was, no. The heat vision and super hearing is in season 2, I believe. But all in all, so the main plot in regards to Clark is that he discovers the truth of that he's not from this planet, and he also starts discovering his powers. And that added along with, the drama that occurs in high school, Clark is trying to manage all of that. Simultaneously, though, when you're talking about the main plot, I feel like you have to talk about Lex Luthor, because in many aspects of this series, Clark and Lex are dual main characters, the main protagonist and the main antagonist. And so I feel like I can't really talk about the series I can't give the series its just due if I don't mention Lex as a main character and as being part of the main plot in his own right. And Lex's main plot is that Lex has come to Smallville. He is in a bit of exile from his father. What has happened is that Lionel has deemed Lex non-worthy to be a part of Luthor Corp in Metropolis. Lex has had some setbacks there, and so he sends Lex off to Smallville to oversee operations of Luthor Corp's factory out there. And here's the deal. The thing is, it's a test. It's to see If Lex can be successful in running the Smallville sector of LuthorCorp, then Lionel will bring him back to Metropolis. You know, okay, you've proved yourself. The reason why I mention this is because this is the reason why Lex is in Smallville, and in the pilot, the main plot the main plot starts when Clark and Lex meet each other, because another one of the intentions of the series was to actually show you all how the iconic rivalry of Superman and Lex Luthor started. And it started with Clark and Lex actually being friends in Smallville. And this is why I said that that's one of the good things that the season did, was that they laid the foundation for that, and they showed you how these two met, and they showed you how that friendship actually developed. And this is very important because throughout the series we see the meeting, the friendship developing, the friendship straining, the friendship falling apart, and then the friendship growing, and then once the friendship is over and they have fallen apart, how that grows into the iconic rivalry that we all know of. And so that is, in my opinion, like the dual main plot is what's going on with Lex. And so now what I'll do is I'll discuss the themes of this season, and I'll discuss the themes before I discuss the subplots. And the reason for that being is because I feel like the themes are what contribute to the subplots, and they help the subplots work. So the theme of season 1 is who am I? That's the main theme. The characters are trying to figure out who they are. They're trying to they're trying to figure out, you know, who they are, what they want out of life, where do they fit in. And so and the way in which, as I mentioned earlier, with Clark it was okay, well, who am I? I just found out I'm an alien, I have all these superpowers. So that's what Clark wrestles with. Lex, his whole thing is who am I in regards to, okay, am I my father's son? Am I like my father? Do I want to be like my father? Or do I want to be my own man? Do I want to achieve things on my own? You know, I don't want to be like my father. I want to be like this. How can I do that? Lana, and what I'll start doing is I'll start talking about the subplots as I talk about the themes. Okay, so Lana, her question is who am I? Because Lana's subplot in season 1 is pretty much trying to figure out who she is and what persona she wants to fulfill while in high school. The thing with Lana is that Lana has, you know, Lana suffers a tragedy as a young girl, as many people do in Smallville due to the meteor shower. And Lana learns, you know, she's been learning this history about her parents from her aunt. Well, there's been this picture depicted to Lana her entire life of, okay, this is who your mother is, and you need to do all of this just so you can be just like your mother. Well, by the time Lana goes to high school, she starts learning more about her mother, and once she learns the truth about her mother in comparison to what her aunt's been telling her of who her mother was, then she starts evaluating, okay, well, who am I then? Do I want to be just like my mom in regards to what my aunt wants me to be like, or what my mother really was, or do I want to be my own woman? And so Lana, that's her subplot in season 1. Now, the interesting thing is, two characters, Pete and Chloe, they don't really have this problem. Instead of Pete and Chloe wrestling with who am I, their thing is that they're wrestling with where do I belong. In regards to Pete being a high school freshman and, you know, wanting to make a name for himself in high school and, you know, really wanting to get the most out of high school, Pete tries to fit in with multiple groups in high school early on in the season. You know, him and Clark try out for football. Pete starts, I mean, hell, there was the thing with the, wait, is that in season 1 with the class president? It might have been, but you know, Pete tries his hand at class politics, and then finally he finds his home with the school paper, which is the Torch. But funny enough, what does Pete cover? Sports. So So with Pete, you kind of get that amalgam of the two. Chloe, on the other hand, a very self-secure character where she knows who she is, and of course her whole thing is the torch, the school paper, the wall of weird, being a reporter. That's what Chloe's all about, and she knows that. But the thing is, though, even though Chloe somewhat knows who she is and knows where she fits in, Chloe's thing about where do I fit in does not relate to like so much social groups in her high school as they do. Where does she fit in amongst her peers, like amongst her friends? That's what Chloe's thing is. Where do I fit in that? Because of course in season 1 they set up the whole love triangle between, well, one of the love triangles is between Clark, Lana, and Chloe. So Chloe tries to figure out where she fits in with there. There's even some speculation of a potential love triangle between Clark, Pete, and Chloe tries to figure out, okay, where do I fit in there? So that's more of her bit. But then of course we find out in the season that Chloe is not as secure in herself as we may believe, and most of that is an act she puts on so that she can portray herself as strong in the eyes of her peers. And so I've mentioned themes, I've mentioned subplots. Let me see, are there, another subplot is the mystery of level 3 that exists in LuthorCorp. Throughout season 1, there are multiple mentions of level 3, which is a research and development sector of LuthorCorp that is off the books, mainly because there is illegal research taking place there, and it has so many negative repercussions and so many negative backlashes that reflect on some of the citizens of Smallville, and that occurs throughout the entire season. Is there another subplot I'm thinking? Let me see. One I might have missed. Of course, where do Martha and Jonathan, and then of course Lionel, fit in with this? Well, Martha and Jonathan, for the most part, they support, they support some of the other subplots. Like, of course, Clark's main plot, they provide support in that, but they have a subplot of their own, and that's of course them fighting for the Kent farm, because there is an issue where Jonathan and Martha may lose the farm, and then of course in regards to Lionel, and this is funny because this is how all of this ties in. Hang on with me for a minute. Okay, so Lionel's main bit is, for the most part, he is somewhat supporting Lex's plot, but he isn't supporting it in the same fashion that Martha and Jonathan are. Like, he's not a supportive father figure, but he is somewhat of the antagonist force in Lex's plot, right? Well, Lionel also is connected to the level 3 conspiracy in LuthorCorp, right? But then he also gets connected with the Kents because of the whole little situation with Clark and his adoption, the strings that Lionel pulled to bring that about, and then the things that Lionel did in the past in order to secure the LuthorCorp, the Smallville sector of LuthorCorp, but also how that reflects with Jonathan, because Jonathan had a hand in some of the events that took place and bring that whole thing about. Yeah, when you get into the fucking subplots with fucking Jonathan and Lionel and LuthorCorp and that shit, yeah, shit gets crazy. And once again, that's like I said, that's one of the strong parts of season 1, is that they're laying the foundation for all that shit. So when the major events between these characters come about, it'll make more sense because now you know the history. And so with that being said, not to make this review any longer than it already is, I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up. So my last thoughts on this season, all in all, it is a good introductory season. It is a very good introductory season, and a lot of what they start laying the groundwork in this season pays off in the later seasons, especially seasons 2, 3, 4. Yeah, more so in seasons 2 and 3. A lot of this shit comes to a head. So my overall thoughts on season 1, out of 5 stars, I would rank season 1 with 3 stars. I give season 1 3 stars. That's wait, actually, hang on a minute. Okay, turning off that. Let's see. Hang on a minute. Let me take that back. Season 1, I would give 3.5 stars. That's a C+. Okay, so I want to thank you all for joining me for this video once again. In the comments below, let me know how I did with this review. Also, let me know your thoughts on season 1 of Smallville. And don't forget, pledge to my comic book miniseries Totems, Kickstarter.com. Really need you guys' help. Still less than halfway there. Less than 3 weeks to raise my goal. And if I don't raise my goal, then I won't get any funding, because Kickstarter is all or nothing funding. So help me reach my goal with that. And once again, thank you all for voting for me for Best Legend of Korra Vlogger for Comic Uno's YouTube Geeky Awards. But with that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next week, peace.